Since my opponent's plan will cause our education system and economy to collapse, I believe you should vote for the negative. I'll begin with my off-case arguments, then move on to my on-case arguments. My opponent begins by responding to my disadvantage that reducing the cost of college will decrease the quality of education with two responses. She states that by saying SAT and GPA will determine acceptance and that a degree will allow people to get high-skilled jobs. To this, I have two responses. First, experience is preferred over a degree for many high-skilled jobs. Second, a GPA and SAT score determined acceptance still will leave a lot of students unable to attend college due to colleges being at capacity. Many students will not go for the degree and go for experience because of how hard it would be to get into college. Turn to my disadvantage to point A, number 1, where I say students will struggle getting to classes because of the waitlist. My opponent had one response saying less privileged students aren't attending because of high cost, not because of waitlist. To this, I have one response. My opponent's argument is invalid because even if the less privileged students could afford college, there will always be the struggle of getting into class and being waitlisted because of how fast the classes fill up. Students are constantly being waitlisted because they cannot get into the required classes. Onto my disadvantage to point A, number 2, where I say colleges provide smaller class sizes for more effective learning environment. My opponent has one response saying with more education, more people will join the workforce. To this, I have one response. My opponent completely ignores my claim that small classes are better for learning and a smaller class size would lead to a more effective workforce. Now we can continue to the on-case arguments. Turn to my opponent's contention 1, where I say college degrees don't guarantee a job. My opponent has one response. Students will want to get a higher education due to no debt and attain jobs easier. To this, I have two responses. First, experience will be preferred due to the amount of degrees being handed out. Second, students will be more successful going for a job experience because they would be getting paid while school fees still cost money. If my opponent's plan would be put in place, degrees would lose value, making experience more preferable. I'll turn to my opponent's contention 2, where I say minorities have an increased attendance rate now than the past. My opponent had one response saying she wants more minorities to attend and for them to be able to choose a college and major. To this, I have two responses. First, school necessities are still very expensive. And second, students will have an even harder time picking colleges and majors because of the overflowing. I like to try to help minorities to afford college, but a free tuition would make things even harder for them. You can continue my attack on my opponent's contention 3, subpoint A on your flowchart. Go to my advantage, subpoint B, where I said students will find trouble finding colleges full. My opponent has one response: a higher demand for education, the higher supply will come. Since I have one response, the supply will not come due to the fact that government cannot afford every student's tuition, especially because teachers who hire the tuition will get even higher. My opponent doesn't realize that the government cannot afford every student's tuition. You continue my attacks on my opponent's plan and advantage C point onto your flowchart. The negative will win this debate for 3 reasons. My opponent fails to realize the government cannot afford a plan. The status quo already provides a huge amount of financial aid for students, making her plan unneeded. My opponent's plan will ruin the economy due to high taxes it would cause.